Chapter 14, Prepositions with Pronominal Suffixes. Of course, you've learned in the last couple of chapters attaching pronominal suffixes to nouns. Now we're going to attach pronominal suffixes to prepositions. And these can be quite challenging. And this is, there's a lot of exceptions and things, and so this is going to take a lot of work. And so if we look at 14.2, we have the inseparable prepositions lamed and bait with pronominal suffixes. And so, of course, in the left column I have the lamed, in the right column I have the bait. And there's a few things that I need to point out to you in these. And that is, if you look at number 1, that the connecting vowels, those vowels with the boxes, are a little different. For instance, in your 2FS and your 1CP, instead of getting the sere that you would get with the 2FS, for instance, instead of getting that, as you've learned, you're going to now get the kamets. And it's the same for the 1CP as well. Instead of getting the sere, like a anu, you're now going to have an anu. You're going to have a long kamet, so you've got to keep that in mind. Also, if you'll look at your 2MP, 2FP, 3MP, 3FP, notice the form here. What you have here, again, remember our pronominal suffixes originally have patach, and in the open pretonic position you're getting lengthening, and that's why you're getting the long kamets under the lamed and the bait. And so you want to keep that in mind. Of course, this follows the rules, and anything that follows the rules is a good thing. But notice another difference in the endings. You get the endings that him, hen ending instead of what you're used to. Like, for instance, this box here, this is a final mem here with a box. This is what you're used to, and also with a noon. But now you've got to add this as a possibility also. And so you say la him, la hen, and so forth. If you look over at the bait preposition, however, you can have one of two options for your 3MP, and that is you can have this bahem, and again the original patach and a pretonic open lengthens. But we have a situation here that I mentioned before in a lecture, and that is that the hay is between vowels. And sometimes when hay is between vowels, it goes away. And that's exactly what happens here. And so you can say by him, or you chop the hay with the sagol, and you end up with bam. So again, the idea here is that intervocalic hay can sometimes drop, and when it does, you get results like this. Okay, so the best way to go after these is memorization, but the memorization can be informed obviously by your knowledge of the pronominal suffixes, those boxes that you put on nouns. And so if you'll make those slight adjustments, they won't be too difficult. Now let's go down to section 3, where we have the preposition im, et, and also the marker of the definite direct object, et. And if you notice, the first thing I give you is the root. And so I show you that the word im, the preposition im, with, the real root behind this word is mem, mem. And so it ends with this double letter. And again, Hebrew will not write a double letter at the end very often. And so what we like to think is that you have this final mem, but you have this dagesh that's hovering. And again, once you put anything on the other side of the mem, like a pronominal suffix, that hovering dagesh will land, and you'll have the doubling of the mem. And so when I show you that root with the double mem, and you can look at the other one, the et, the same thing, you have aleph, tav, tav. Again, you'll have a hovering dagesh. You put something on the end of it, that dagesh will come down and land. Okay, so let's look at a couple of these. If you take, for instance, the 1CP, it looks like this, imanu. And again, remember the pronominal suffix has a different connecting vowel with the nouns. Of course, you have a sere there. With the prepositions, you often get the long kamets. Notice the hovering dagesh has landed in the mem, but of course you know this word because if I put L here, Emmanuel, and so you know this particular word pretty well, but again I wanted to show you the hovering dagesh. Now the same thing really goes with the root et, which also means with, and so again your root is aleph, tav, tav. But what Hebrew is going to do is, instead of writing it that way, they're going to have a hovering dagesh and just write one. And once you put some type of ending on it, the hovering dagesh lands. And of course, with the landing of the dagesh, notice with the landing of the dagesh, you simply get a hirik here. Because this is closed unaccented, Hebrew requires a short vowel. But the form, as you often see it, is this, because the accent is here. Now you have a closed accented Hebrew prefers long vowel, you get the sere. If the preposition's in construct, then it goes to sagol. But if it has a pronominal suffix, again the hovering dagesh lands, and usually with the dagesh, it prefers a hirik over a sagol. And so you get iti like this. Now, one thing I do want you to notice between the im preposition and with the et preposition is if you look at the 3MP, 2FP, 3MP, 3FP, the last four, notice that with im, notice you get a long kamets, pre-tonic open, but with the et you get an exception. You just get a vocal schwa, so you get something like this. You get that schwa there. So again, that's not real different because again, this would be part of your box if you want to look at it that way. But with im, what you end up getting is this long kamets, which again looks like pre-tonic open, long kamets. And so you need to watch out for that difference. Now we want to look at the marker of the definite direct object. Again, you can see that the free form, the absolute form, looks like this. If you put it in construct, of course, it's now closed and accented, you'll get the sagol. And if you put the pronominal suffixes with this, notice the holum that you get. You say ot. And notice you'll see that holum all the way down until you get to the last four forms, and then you switch forms and you say etchem and so forth. You say etchem, etchen, and so forth. So, and again, in the last two forms, you can get either ethem or otam, otan. And so you just have to keep those in mind. So, again, on these forms, you're going to basically have to memorize it. But again, with knowledge of your pronominal suffix, endings, your boxes, and so forth, it will help you. Notice there is no doubling, there is no hovering dagesh here with the marker of the definite direct object. All right, now we go down to section 4 of chapter 14, and we're looking at three more prepositions. The L preposition, which with the accent would look like this, but it's usually almost always in the construct, and when you get it, it'll always have this sagol like this. But when you put pronominal suffixes on, and this time what you need to notice about L and all is for the first time what we see is the pronominal suffixes of the plural are being attached to these. The ones we looked at before, the lama, debate, et and im, and those, we use the pronominal suffixes of the singular. But with L and al, we will use the pronominal suffixes of the plural noun. So for instance, like a 2ms will look like this. Again, the box is on here, but notice that this looks like a plural ending. Now, I do give you a footnote about this, and the footnote tells you that even though this looks like the endings of a plural noun, it may not be that. There could be another explanation. This yod may have been originally just part of the word, and so that's probably the real explanation. But again, you can see you have this is in the pretonic open, and so you're getting a lengthening here. Okay, let me give you one more from L. With one of the heavy endings, a 2MP, the accent, of course, is shifted all the way to the end of the word. And so now what we're going to get is a schwa here, because that's now in the originally open pro-pretonic. And so the original short vowel is reduced. And notice how it'll take the one with a patach, a chetef patach here. You might expect a chetef sagol or something like that. But you get the chetef patach, and so that explains what this is here. All works the same, except all you're going to have an original patach under here. And so if we put like a 3ms on it, that's in the open pretonic, and so it lengthens the original patach to a long kametz. For, again, the heavy suffixes, for your heavy suffixes, the accent's going to move all the way down, leaving the original patach in an originally open pro-pretonic, so it's going to reduce again to a vocal schwa. So you need to watch for those. The next one is the word lefanim. This is the word for face, but the word for face in Hebrew ends in a plural ending. I guess you have two sides of your face, whatever the psychological reason for using the plural is. And so when we put the pronominal suffixes on this word, just like in the plural noun of davar, you didn't say davarim and then put your pronominal suffixes on that. No. You didn't do that. You had to get rid of the im and then put the suffixes for plural nouns on there. That's how you did it. You would say davar, and then you'd put something like an ending like this on, which was for a plural noun, and that told you this is words, not just word, but words. Well, the same phenomenon has to occur here. Namely, this im ending here, we must get rid of it. So we must get rid of that first. And if you remember, we have a kametz here and a vocal schwa. Well, as you know, that's going to go back to a patach and to another patach. The kametz going back to patach and the vocal schwa going back to patach. And now what we need to do is put the suffixes for a plural noun on this. And so why don't we do a 2fs? And so what we would do is we would box up the nun. And it would look something like this. And now what we need to do is crunch the rules. And so the pei being in a pretonic open, we lengthen from patach from patach to long kametz. And then this patach being in the originally open pro-pretonic, you're going to get the vocal schwa lefanayach. You can clearly see that a lot of your prepositions go back to nouns, and this is true again in many languages. If you go down to the heavy suffixes, again, I'm going to go ahead and restore the proto-form. And so this time, let's put a 2MP. And as you know, with the heavy suffixes, we have the accent on the chem, the heavy suffix part. And so this is in the nun here is in the pretonic position. It's got a historic long vowel. There's no problem there. But the other two are going to be in the originally open pro-pretonic. They're both reduced to vocal schwa. You'll have a schwa fight. You'll have the hirik there, lifnechem. So again, that's how you want to approach lefanim. It's not very difficult as long as you know to get rid of that masculine plural absolute ending. Restore your proto-vowels, then connect the boxes of the plural noun, and then crunch your rules. So it's not too bad. When you come down to number 5, section 5 of chapter 14, it gets more difficult. Now we're doing the kaf preposition. Remember the first ones we did were the lamed and the bait prepositions. Now we're looking at the kaf, and most of the time you don't put the prepositions right onto the kaf. Now there are a couple that you can do that with, but usually you have an extended form, kamo, and it's on this form that we're going to put the pronominal suffix. And so this time we're going to end the word with a vowel, and because of that, that could come into conflict with some of our endings. For instance, you know, the usual 1CS, 1CS. This would not be good for Hebrew because you have a vowel, then you have another vowel, and Hebrew avoids this type of situation. And therefore Hebrew, if you notice in my first note, I talk about the extended form. When you get down to note 3, I talk about variant endings that you have to know that avoids two vowels coming together. And so your ending here is going to be like ni. That's going to be your new ending because you need this consonant to be a buffer between the two vowels. And so you need to look at note 3 very closely here, because again you're going to need these consonantal buffers between the two vowels. The accent is going to be over the mem, and so the original patach under the kaf will lengthen to a long kametz, as you see here. So you can see that. Also look for your 3ms. You can see that you get a hu ending instead of an o ending. And for your 3fs, you get the ha. And again, what they're putting is those hays as buffers between the vowels. And so you have to watch for that. Now, if you look at your 2MP and your 2FP, this time you are getting the simple kaf preposition. It's almost like these heavy endings are seen as nouns in themselves. And therefore, again, the original patach lengthens to a kametz, or your accent here. And again, this is just like the kaf inseparable preposition placed on a noun, because again, these endings here are treated like nouns, really. And that's why you're not getting the extended form kamo. And then finally, with the last ones, you are getting a extension. You're getting kamo, and then you are getting heavy endings. So what can we do? That's the way the Hebrew world and all worlds go. Your accent will be down here. So the original patach, of course, will be subject to destruction, and you get it. Kemohim is the word here. So again, this one's more difficult. You're going to have to really work on attaching pronominal suffixes on the kaf. But also for number 6, it's also very difficult, and that's the min preposition with pronominal suffixes. For many of the forms, you really reduplicate the min, and so really it's like min, min, and then you attach the pronominal suffix here at the end. And so as you see, these noons are going to be in the silent schwa position, which in Hebrew is a dangerous thing, and so we're going to have all sorts of assimilations. And that's what's going to explain these forms. So let me just give you one example, and then you can read about the rest. If you look at the 1CS, you have a form mimeni. And again, this dagesh really represents the noon. And then this dagesh really represents a noon. And so you can see the reduplication, and then you can see the ending here, the ni ending that you get. So a lot of assimilation. So for some of the forms, and I list them in number 1 there, those reduplicate. But then when you look at your 2ms and 2fs, they only partially reduplicate. So you get a min, you get one min, but then you get a min, but then you get a mem, without the noon, And so that's just partial reduplication. And then finally, again with those heavy suffixes, the min is attached directly. Just like, again, these endings here are being seen as like nouns. And so that's exactly what you would expect. And then mayhem, that's a nice word. Mayhem, rejection, and you're getting the lengthening. So sections 5 and 6, the kaf preposition and the min preposition, these are both going to take a little bit more effort and time for you to master. And so you need to read chapter 14 very carefully, and I would recite them orally, write them down many times, and then of course you want to look at the questions, the vocabulary, and then the drills.